Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are speaking with Linda Dunn. Linda, welcome, and can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Justin. So my name is Linda Dunn, and I'm the faculty director for the Supply Chain Management Master's Program at Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies.
Thanks for this. We've done a lot of work together in the past. We talk about just to put it on record, Linda is very interested in supply chain and AI. So we talk a lot about these technologies. Linda does have a financial background, so that's why this is a perfect person for this conversation to bring in her knowledge. So, Linda, can you so the purpose of this discussion is to discuss how blockchain can increase financial literacy. So, given your knowledge, how do you think that can happen in your opinion?
Sure, Justin. So, there's so much out there with DeFi, right? And so, and we know there's many people who don't even have bank accounts. And that's a piece of really looking at the blockchain and how more people could, in essence, have their own bank account that isn't centralized, the people who might not qualify for it or might be remote. And I think to do that, before anyone ventures in, I would assume that they would try to learn a little bit, right? You generally wouldn't jump into the stock market unless you have learned something about the stock market, or if you do, you're going to lose your money, right? So I think the incentive for people who may use it as a way to, start bank accounts, who haven't had the ability to do that in the past, they'll start to learn about, well, if I put it here, what does it do? Do I get interest? How do I get my money out? There's a lot of key, you talk about having a finance background. Undergrad, I majored in finance and English. And so you learn some very basic ideas, time value of money as an example, right? So what's it worth? Rates of return, and how you look at them versus risk, right? And all of these are concepts in finance that are very, very important because you might earn more in a riskier investment. So, a corporate bond versus a treasury bond as an example. And why is that? And what is your risk tolerance? So I think they'll be looking at things like that. What is my risk tolerance? What's the right place to go? How comfortable am I? So those are all questions that are important for finance. And I think today I'm seeing a movement in actually high schools to require, across the US at least, basic finance, like financial literacy. That's several states have passed something. I think it should be mandatory, but I think, where you can make it interesting for kids to learn or have a reason for them to learn. And I think blockchain is a place where there's a lot of interest by the younger folks. And so that may be something that would encourage them to do that. And maybe they get some value back from it, whether it's a token or, something that says I've learned this or in essence of something of value for doing it.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned a good point in that you're seeing some schools introduce financial literacy, and I think that financial literacy within the classrooms. And I was trying to do a quick search while you're talking about, because I know a couple of years ago Georgia passed a bill to introduce cryptocurrency education within high schools, and I just seen where it was a post. Oh, that's the Republic of Georgia, not the state of Georgia. But I know the state of Georgia in the United States did pass that. So I think I'm just trying to see if they're still continuing on with that or what the status of that is. But yeah, I mean, you have a good point. And financial literacy, whether it be traditional finance or blockchain finance with digital assets. I don't want to call them cryptocurrencies because Chairman Gary Gensler says everything is a security now. So digital assets, digital asset education. So what's your thoughts, and going back into that, what's your thoughts on introducing gamification within, financial literacy? How do you think that's going to impact financial literacy?
I think gamification could be a game changer, really. And pardon the pun, but the reason is that, younger generation has grown up gaming, right? I mean, it's huge. Spend a lot of time gaming. And we know that you learn better when learning is linked to emotions. And so gaming brings out emotions, right? It brings out happiness or sometimes frustration, but mainly, it's fun. So tying those together makes things more memorable from a neuroscience perspective, really. So gamification will help people want to learn. And this is not a topic that everyone's like saying, yeah, let me learn about digital assets or finance in general, right? Not always. I think cryptocurrency or digital assets it is something that people have interest in because there's a lot of news in the press and things like that. And so there's interest, no different than maybe even stocks were, in the 80s, that people were like, oh, let's, start an exchange. There were stock clubs everywhere in college and things like that. So I think gamification could really help people with the incentive piece. And I told you a quick story, but I'll say it here. Is that, I have 3 daughters, and I basically said, I'm going to give each of you a certain amount of money if you read this book. And it was a book that was basically on financial literacy. And the reward of getting money that they then had to stick into this, really into any way they wanted, but basically diversified stock funds is what they did. With my one daughter actually doing her first Roth at 21, which I just imagine the, compounding interest by the time she takes that out. And I said, this is to stay, right? This is to stay the whole time. I know you can withdraw for some reasons, but I think you'll see that with the digital currency too, is an understanding of saying, okay, I'm in it for longer than this, sort of today, it seems like a short term, let's get in, maybe let's get out. But I think over time, as there'll be more shakeout, I think that will happen. But after the shakeout and after whether it's oversight, regulation, auditing, something that puts a lot of comfort there, just like you need for the stock market. I do think that that's going to happen with the cryptocurrency. So once that does, you'll see more and more people investing in it that maybe weren't, didn't have the risk tolerance to do it, that are doing it now. Right. So I think you'll see that. And I think gamification, to go back to that for a minute, is a way that people can learn quickly, easily. We know people are visual learners, a large number of people. And again, I think it will make it more incentive to do that, similar to when I, you can financially incent, or you can incent through something like a positive experience. And that's really what gamification does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that. So whenever you mention that, you may be starting to look up something else. I'm a nerd like that. But I know in the past, you taught me a little bit about neuroscience and things like that. So within gaming, we always talk about that dopamine rush. In crypto and digital assets, we always talk about a dopamine rush. So if we take that rush in gaming, in digital assets, how do you think that's going to impact? I know I'm caught you off guard with this one because I just never thought about it. But so how do you think that's going to kind of impact, the increase in financial literacy and that type of and kind of combine those two things. That's a double rush.
Yeah, and we've got to be careful because, in today's world, and this has been studied, when people get a ping from a text message, they get a dopamine rush, and that's not necessarily good all the time, right? So I think when you're using gaming for a purpose of learning, and it's balanced, they're not immediately making a transaction or doing something, they're just learning. I think that is then more responsible way, I'd say, to ensure that they're getting something beneficial out of it. But yeah, it's definitely gamification, does link, people feel like they are gaining something, right? So there's an achievement piece to gaming. And I think, though, you get that in learning in general. When you feel good about what you're learning, that you've learned a new concept or you can apply. We talk about, we're a practice-based university at Georgetown SES. So when you can actually, I love it when someone says, I got to apply this, like this tool or, stakeholder RACI chart or whatever. I think, though, that kind of is like a gamification, so this is just putting it into a world of, bits and bytes and where they can see it, and they're learning in a way that they can see the application, get a sense of fulfillment out of it, and hopefully figure out how they can put it into real use in their life. And financial literacy, it makes a huge difference. I mean, whether you end up with, security at the end, that's what everyone wants, to be secure. Maybe people want to be rich, but I'd just say secure, financially secure. A lot of it has to do with your knowledge. And if you don't have the right knowledge and you don't understand risk and you don't understand time value of money and compounding interest in the basic concepts, then you're going to have a lot of problems. So it really is important, just like, and I would add in there budgeting. So something like this, when I think of the education that can happen, how much do you put in, whether it's in a digital asset or in the stock market or in a savings account or a CD? You earn a certain amount. How much do you put where? What's your budget? Where are your expenses? Learning those kind of tools are just invaluable to anyone, but certainly if the younger you are, and once you get that I'm going to put a certain amount away towards savings every single week or bi-weekly, whenever you get paid, no matter what. And then I have to live off the rest. It's a hard concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So what's your thoughts? So I know we spoke briefly about this. What's your thoughts in terms of game-based learning, as compared to gamification?
Well, when you're looking at game-based learning, are you looking more at a simulation when you say that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Yeah. So, I mean, we use simulation today, and it's interesting. I think that is, I see them as very related, Justin, honestly, but a little bit different. I mean, taking something and gamifying it, you might have certain outcomes and things you're looking for, but game-based learning, things like Kahoot, where you can, all of a sudden.
Love that one, that's for sure. Undergrads love that game. I still haven't tried it, but they love it.
Yeah, I do that in the intro class. It's fun because people compete against one another. They can add a name, but we also do simulations, and some of those simulations can be very computer-based, but you can also do simulations that are more person-based, and I say that like role-based, right? We do mock negotiations, right? That is in essentially doing a game-based type of exercise. We've done simulations in humanitarian logistics. What happens when all the stuff happens and you have different roles? That isn't necessarily for those two. You are doing role playing, you are interacting, but not necessarily using the computer. And it's almost like I'll go to, for people who know Dungeons and Dragons, right? You take on a role, you play the role out, and you can play online, but you can play in person, right? So I think that the ideas are similar, but I think having things that are simulations where people can learn from, practice, role play. What I see with education, it's the time to make your mistakes. So a great example is pretend. It's like the pretend portfolio. You could do that with digital assets. See how you do before you jump in. I like to say that education is about making your mistakes, learning from your mistakes, so that when you get to hopefully whatever we call the real world, might be the metaverse, could be the real world, or it could be your job or wherever you are, but that hopefully you'll lessen the number of mistakes you make. And that's really what I think financial literacy can do.
Excellent. So yeah, Linda, thank you. Thank you for this. Anything else you want to add in terms of this topic?
No, it's a great topic because it's important, I think, that the youth learn financial literacy.
Yeah. So where can people find you? Where can people learn more about the program?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, Linda Dunn, pretty easy to find me. Also, the program, you can go to Georgetown University SDS website and look at supply chain management master's program there, and lots of information about the program, types of courses, etc. As a matter of fact, we do have a financial and cost analysis course. So as part of supply chain, I feel so strongly about that being tied into, being a supply chain leader.
Excellent. So Linda, thank you once again for this, and everyone else, until next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.